I've got the absolute pleasure of hosting today's session. I'm Jade Maloney. I'm Operations Manager at the Institute of Health and Social Care Management, and we are joined this afternoon by Dr. Claire Mould, Director of Curve Strategic, who will be leading this workshop on the fundamentals of emotional intelligence. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. So I am recording today's session, so you can catch up if you need to dip out for whatever reason. We do encourage group working and individual working throughout some of these sessions today that Claire's going to be asking you to get involved in. There'll be some theory, so please do have something to take notes with that you'll find very valuable, no doubt. And can you put yourself on mute until you are called upon to take part in those breakout sessions, etc. Any questions, please use the chat box and I will help Claire out. In the meantime, I'll hand straight over to Dr. Claire Mould and you can start, Claire.
Wonderful, thank you very much, and welcome everybody. Can everybody see my shared screen? Can everybody see the?
We can. You're good to go.
Wonderful. We're off then, Jade. We're off and flying. So this is very much a, do use the chat, do things. Jade knows me very, very well and knows that I have no offence if she goes, oh, hold on a minute, Claire, somebody's put something in the chat. Let's discuss it now. Just to sort of give you a indication of how it will work, I'll sort of talk through, because these are power hours, if those of you that have been on them before know, we're going to canter through at pace. But what I've tried to do is then give you all the headline information with activities thrown in. So actually, potentially you could take this away and then like extend it longer and think about it longer. And you're welcome to join me on sort of, connect with me on LinkedIn or go back to Jade and say, actually, this would be really nice doing a half a day at this at some point. So we will be going through at pace, but there'll be lots of activities and please do feel free to be interactive. So marching on then. So what we're going to be doing is going through what is emotional intelligence, why is emotional intelligence fundamental in the workplace, how effective leadership can ensure that emotional intelligence is genuinely established and embedded, what emotionally intelligent leadership looks like and why it's effective, achieving emotionally intelligent leadership in practice, and the positive impact emotionally intelligent leadership has on the workplace. So a lot to cover in an hour. What I'll try and do is finish, well, I will do is finish, a few minutes before 12 o'clock. We always finish neatly before 1 o'clock. So we always finish neatly at 1 because we know that you have places to go to, but there will be a chance for questions and answers at the end. So what is emotional intelligence? A lot of people think that they know that it's broadly, and people are sort of thinking, well, actually, I think it's to do with, just showing people, being kind to people. But the first and foremost thing we need to be aware of emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of and control your own emotions. And that's in that order on purpose. So you are actually aware of your emotions and control them. That doesn't mean that emotionally intelligent people are sort of saintly all the time and absolutely wonderful. But if you know, actually, this is a trigger that makes me angry, or this is something that makes me very sad, or this is something that makes me very emotive in another way, this is how I learned to sort of control that emotion. And when you are a leader, a barometer within your workplace, it's important that you have your emotions in check. And then when you've got your emotions in check, then you have the skill to handle relationships carefully and empathetically. And then when we come from that, the ability to recognise emotions in yourselves and in others and use it understanding in constructive ways. Now, all of those link, because what you need to do is empathise, but not keep your emotions in check. Because if somebody's saying something to you that's quite disturbing, you can't get drawn into that. You've got to remain really, really clear. You can't get angry, you can't get sad. Of course, you can empathise, but don't make somebody else's crisis your crisis, because in the workplace, people are looking to you for stability. Of course, say, gosh, that must be absolutely awful. or that's absolutely fantastic. I can see why that really excites you. Show empathy, but don't drag the scenario down or get too giddy-gad going. Otherwise, you recognise emotions in others and use them constructively, because sometimes there are individuals that note people's ways in which they, you know, they present their emotions, and actually they're not used in particularly constructive ways. They're used in destructive ways and used to hold people back from growing. You hear people sort of turning around and saying, oh, well, that's just how somebody is. They just always get really, really angry about those things. So that, you know, and you just think, actually, that isn't particularly constructive. If you know that you have a member of the team that is quite a pennant on something, or whether that they get angry about something, or they're very short, actually you can't excuse that by saying, oh, well, that's just how they are, or say, well, I'm not going to give this task to them because I know that they'll only grumble about it, so I'll give it to them. Actually, you've got to use it in constructive ways. Say, well, actually, how can I identify that, and how can I provide support to that team member to make them a better team player, to help them in their communication skills, to help them in their listening skills, to boost their confidence. And importantly, it's the awareness that communications can leave you feeling content and connected, but also may leave you feeling alienated and upset. And that's really important, because the key thing that I've had to learn over the years is something that I think may leave somebody feeling happy. From their perspective, with the links that it has in their mind moving forward, it might actually leave them feeling more upset. We don't know how people are going to be left thinking about something. And often we make the mistake of saying, oh, well, gosh, I thought that they would have been a bit more pleased than that. Or, oh, well, I'm surprised that they reacted in that way. You've got to be able to think, well, actually, can what I'm saying alienate people? And that is really, really challenging when you have diverse teams, diverse colleagues that will respond in different ways, that need to be communicated with in different ways. We've got to be thinking of their brain that will be impacted by their experiences that have brought them to that position, and the way in which they learn, the way in which they develop. So what I want you to do now is literally just spend 2 minutes just reflecting on an interaction that left you feeling content and connected. And why was that about that interaction? And also another interaction that left you feeling upset and alienated. And what was it about that? If anybody wants to share anything in the chat, that's absolutely fantastic. If you want to raise a hand and actually speak, that's absolutely fantastic. Or if you don't, that's fine as well. So just literally just 2 minutes to think of those points. Okay, so just another 30 seconds then, just for us to think about that. I don't know if anybody's putting anything in chat or not, Jade.
There's no feedback in the chat at the moment, Claire, but please do feel free to raise your virtual hand as well if you'd rather speak. We will not be sharing anybody's experiences in the final recording. This part of the workshop will not be included afterwards. So please feel free to engage. Okay, we have got a chat message, Claire. So Ross has been doing a Wellbeing Wednesday initiative with the team and have been holding mindfulness meditation sessions for those that have been interested. The interactions following the meditation this morning has left him feeling really content, the team feeling relaxed, and expressed a lot of positivity, and they are now feeling very positive themselves. That's great to hear.
Oh, that's absolutely fantastic, Ross. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what that's a really delightful example of, so I'm so pleased you shared it, is so often people say, oh, but we haven't got time to do things like that. Or that's a luxury that we can't afford because we just don't have the time. Whereas hopefully what Ross is sharing there is the fact that the benefits from investing what in essence is a small amount of time to do these Wellbeing Wednesdays and do these meditation sessions, actually having those members of the team that are feeling connected and content, having a high level of well-being, will actually benefit the rest of the day. So it's really, really good time well spent. So I'm really, really enthused to hear about that. Thank you very much for sharing, Ross. Great. If there's nothing else, then we'll move on. Is there anything else coming through, Jade?
Just that one. There's not a reflection on anything that's upset anyone.
That's absolutely fine. It's just, you know, people to reflect, and it's just go away and think about the little things, how you can be left feeling content and connected. And I know from my perspective, I remember years ago when I was a young research student and I was working in Greece, and I was sat there, I was quite intimidated, and one of the professors there was saying, oh, actually, you're really good at making eye contact with people and drawing people in. Actually, I noticed that throughout the meetings, you're really good, which was a lovely thing to say, because I was absolutely petrified about the fact, and mainly I was making eye contact because I was thinking, I'm surrounded by all these professors, I'm not quite sure if I've got anything of worth to make. But him just saying, oh, actually, it was really pleasing to say how you were engaging with everybody, and it just made me really boost, and then it gave me the confidence to start contributing. Whereas feeling upset and alienated, and this is far more recently, when I was giving a board report, a particular board that I sat on, and I sort of had spent an awful lot of time presenting something, and then the person who was chairing the meeting sort of then turned around and said, okay, and then turned to the person on my right and goes, is that your experience as well? What are your views on this? Without even making contact. And I thought, hold on a minute, I've spent ages doing this and you obviously just don't even value it. You're more interested in what he's got to say. So it's just those little, and I'm sure he didn't think anything of it. He probably just wanted to move the meeting on a pace. It's those things we've got to consider in ourselves. So why is emotional intelligence fundamental in the workplace? Emotional intelligence has a powerful effect on our ability to pursue meaningful, purposeful professional lives. There's an awful lot of research that says this. It really is at the root. People with high emotional intelligence go on to lead more meaningful, purposeful professional lives. I haven't used the word successful there on purpose, because I think definitions of successful, particularly if we see people that are sort of presented in the media to us, you know, people make the mistake of thinking, oh, is that linked to making lots of money or whatever? And I think there are lots of examples of people with an awful lot of money that I probably wouldn't think that they're emotionally intelligent. And you can sort of see that by the way they treat other people. But if we look at our ability to pursue meaningful, purposeful professional lives, and I think I'm sort of pushing on an open door for all of you that have come into working in this sector, that, you know, that's all we want, is to do a meaningful, that we actually have a sense of purpose. Now, this is the key. This is where it starts to get interesting, that people who are emotionally intelligent have the ability to understand and influence the emotions and behaviours of others. It can be quite manipulative if you really are engaging, you know, with emotions. But what we can do is actually grow those and influence those, give people positive strokes. You note the people in the meeting that actually want to be included but feel intimidated if you say to them, oh, well, what are your thoughts on this? Because they don't like speaking up in a team meeting scenario. You know your peers that actually have got something really, really great to say, but never get the opportunity to say it. So you can sort of champion on their behalf if you're a more confident individual. Or you can turn around and just say to somebody, actually, do you know what? The way that you interacted with that particular individual was really, really positive. I noticed that they really light up every time they see you coming in the room. You can influence that. And research shows us that this ability to give constructive, positive strokes can lead to increased productivity and greater organisational growth. Equally, if you're saying to people, actually, that interaction left somebody feeling alienated, you might want to think about this, but you can do it in a sensitive way. Now, if we're not communicating with people in this sensitive way, it can have a detrimental impact on the organisations as a result of the damaging effects negative interactions have on individual employees. We all know how communication just cut people short and put people off, make people feel unvalued. Feeling valued in the workplace is one of the top 5 reasons why people stay where they are. It's far higher than a financial salary. If people feel that they are actually communicated with, and I always use the phrase communicated with, not communicated to. I don't talk to you, I talk with you. And that doesn't mean that we always have to go around sunshine and roses and sort of saying that everything's absolutely fantastic. You can actually deliver really, really harsh messages, but do it in a really articulate, sensitive way. To think, well, actually, is this something that I'm going to send, and tell people through an email, or is this something that I need to actually go and speak to people face to face about? Is this something that actually I know this person's going to be upset by it, but actually this person, they'll be absolutely fine? We have to consider our communications because there's so much increasing evidence that shows poor communication can have these detrimental effects. Okay, now we're moving on to another activity, and this is one that is going to put you to the test. One of the main things with communication is actually genuinely listening. We're often very good at going into meetings and talking, or sort of talking to peers, but actually, how often do we reflect on our ability to genuinely listen? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to list 3 quite well-known lists. Okay, so at least one of them you should be familiar with. I should imagine most of you won't. And without writing anything down, you've just got to listen. And from each of the lists, I'm going to omit one of them. Okay, so there'll be one thing missing from the list. And then at the end, what we're going to do is you say which ones you think have been missed, and I'll give you the answers, because so often with genuine listening, we don't always hear what's being said. We have to genuinely listen, so we can say, because somebody might say something and it's that key bit of information that we miss because we're just nodding and almost thinking about how we're going to respond. Okay, so the 3 lists, one is omitted from one. So the first list, planets: Venus, Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Neptune, and Uranus. Okay, that's the first list. One of the planets is missing. You just have to remember which one is missing. The second list, these are Henry VIII's wives: Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, Catherine Parr. One of Henry VIII's wives is missing from that list. And then the final one is a longer list, but you should be very familiar with it. It's star signs Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. One of the star signs is missing. So I've omitted one of the planets, one of Henry VIII's wives, and one of the star signs. Okay. Now I've finished. If you want to jot them down as an aid memoir, you can. It was just at the time, don't write down the list so you can refer to it. So don't write down the list, but if you want to make a note, then, because I don't want you to not listen to what I'm saying because you're so desperately holding those in your mind. We'll come on to that at the very end. We'll return to it. Okay. So just to, you know, really reinforce, every good conversation starts with good listening. Okay, it's that phrase, you know, go into a conversation seeking to understand rather than seeking to be understood. That piece of, and I'm, you know, all because I love to, Jade will tell you, I love to chat, I love to talk. Anybody that's spent more than 3 minutes with me knows I'm really, really happy to talk. Whereas you can sort of almost think of, oh yeah, well, I've got a good anecdote to add, or, oh yes, I've got a response to that, or actually, no, this is how we need to do it. And you're almost waiting for someone to finish so you can say your piece. We can't do that if we're emotionally intelligent. We need to genuinely listen. So this is why emotional intelligence is so important and can only be embedded if there is effective leadership. And that is at whatever level within the organisations. Research shows us that organisations that are not led in an effectively emotionally intelligent way evidence emotionally exhausted employees, an increase in stress in the workplace, a significant drop in productivity, a substantial escalation in cost for the organisations and then subsequently the government. And you'll see why when I come on to the statistics, again, going back to the fact that that's why I'm so heartened, and thank you very much again, Ross, for sharing, you know, about saying about building in these Wellbeing Wednesdays. And I'm sure now, as Ross has said, that you're all thinking, oh, well, we do this and we do this. So please do put them in the chat so we can all learn and we can grow, because I'm sure you do absolutely fantastic things that I can sort of say, oh, that's a good one to take away, and others as well. It's so important to invest in it, because addressing each of those points is far more time consuming, far more expensive, and actually drags the organisation or individual communications down. Work-related stress and mental illness now accounts for over half of work absences. If left untreated, this can cause serious mental health problems for employees. There is now a direct correlation. I've got some 2023 stats hot off the press that I'm going to share with you in a moment to show the impact that this is having. More than half, 57% of all UK employees feel worn out by work. That statistic is one that really, when I first read it, absolutely, that expression, feeling worn out by work, worn out. I wonder how many of you at the moment feel worn out. 500,000 people in the UK now suffer from work-related stress. That's huge numbers. And also, let us not forget that they're the only people that have been diagnosed with work-related stress. How many times do we see people in our workplace that are just sitting down, literally? I saw this photograph and I thought, I've got to share it, because how often I see people, you know, with hands on heads and that bit, you know, just needing time. People are feeling exhausted. And actually, even though we said that we'd come out of the pandemic and everybody would be far more emotionally intelligent and connected, exhausted, actually, there is research to show that actually people's mental health has deteriorated coming out of it rather than rather than gone up, and we really need to start moving forward. These are 2023 stats. Straight, literally these could not be more current. Currently, as we stand, 23% of adults say that work causes them stress. And they're the people that actually identify that they feel stress. There are an awful lot of people that I see working in varied organisations that don't identify as stress, but they're certainly emotionally exhausted. 13.7 million working days are lost each year in the UK because of work-related stress, anxiety and depression. This is costing £28.3 billion yearly. Recent analysis by Deloitte has found that poor mental health costs UK employees up to £45 billion each year, and the costs are rising. This has gone up in the last years as we've come out of the pandemic. This has gone up. The reason I say about the costs, yes, it's really important, but also then I always use that to champion my argument when people say, well, we can't afford to invest in this. I would say now we can't afford not to invest in addressing this. 76% of employees report moderate to high or high levels of stress. 76% of employees. 33% report that high levels of stress impact productivity. This one probably won't surprise you. The top cause of work-related stress is workload. This is a Workplace Health Report 2023. But it's interesting though that 54% agree that the perfect amount of stress enables them to thrive. And the reason I include that statistic is to not contradict the others, but it's because people use the word stress, but it depends. If somebody's talking about workload, actually the reason that they're stressed is because their workload is unrealistic, or they're not communicated with in a considerate, effective way. Whereas actually, if somebody gives you a task to do and delegates, and they do that in an emotionally intelligent way, you can feel valued. And the opposite is, I know I've certainly, and I'm absolutely sure that those of you here will agree as well, that when I've sat there and somebody said, oh, what we're going to do is this, and I think I'm going to do that, I've actually become more stressed and more thinking, well, why don't you give that to me to do, because I'm the one that's working with this particular individual, or I'm the one that knows about this. Actually, I can do that. I want to take this on. And I know that where I've worked with organisations, individuals have grown because we have said, actually, yeah, would you like to take responsibility for safeguarding? Would you like to take responsibility for first aid? And that's because that's something that they're interested in. Through our supervisory meetings that we do, through our one-to-ones, through our chats with our peers, people will say, actually, this is what I'm really interested in. And so putting people, under pressure to sort of say, actually, yeah, could you do that? But I need it by the end of the week. People don't mind that. It enables them to thrive. Again, it comes back to that point, it makes them feel valued, but it's how that message is communicated. And when those people have done what they've, been asked to do, how that is celebrated.
Just before you move on, Claire.
Yeah.
So, sorry, it's a bit of a background noise. There's three comments in the chat that I wanted to highlight.
Oh, perfect. Yes, please do.
So John's put, I think people need a level of emotional intelligence to identify that they are stressed, so the numbers are probably higher.
Agreed. Yes, John, I couldn't agree more. And which is why it is so very, very important for us to have emotionally intelligent people in the workplace that can support those people that don't yet realise and enable them to get to that position of emotional intelligence. I really, really do. I think they're the ones that I'm most concerned about, because we all see colleagues that are floundering, but they're saying, I had to say that to somebody yesterday, and they actually turned around to me and they were saying, oh, but what else do you want to? And I said, actually, what I want you to do is just go and breathe. Just go and breathe. Just go and sit down and breathe. So, yes, John, I could not agree with you more.
And then there's two comments from Morgan. The first one, At least a third of the population are thought to be neurodivergent, which will also increase burnout. More people have sought help and diagnosis over the pandemic. And also, some level of stress is actually helpful to us. We need to define what's helpful and what's very negative.
Absolutely, yes, Morgan, you preempted, as always. It doesn't surprise me, Morgan. You preempted what the side about the say that 54% say that the perfect amount of stress enables them to thrive. And I think your point about neurodiversity is an excellent one and well made, because this comes back to the fact of us realizing that we all communicate and learn and present in different ways, and it's up to us to make the workplace as inclusive as possible to enable those individuals that do present in different ways to feel included, to be able to communicate in a way that makes them feel comfortable, that doesn't make them feel excluded. And we need to feel very, very confident that we're doing that in a way that doesn't exclude people by sort of harness, or doesn't make them feel uncomfortable, even more uncomfortable, because I've seen people try to do that before and it actually makes them feel more uncomfortable, but in a really, really considerate way. And actually the next presentation that I'm going to do in a couple of weeks is about nurturing emotionally intelligent teams, which will unpack some of those things. So thank you, and please, Jay, do feel free to chip in, because there's such valued points and such relevant points for the rest of the group to be hearing. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, John. So then, how can we then support to reduce stress and emotional exhaustion in the workplace? And it's interesting, going on from Morgan's point about percentage of people that are neurodivergent, which is why we have to have a variety of ways, because Morgan's quite right that you can't, because I know that, and it's really interesting, and I'll carry on with the example linking in with what Morgan said, is that I've supported organisations before, and we've spoken about wellbeing, and the manager of the organisation, really lovely, but a really gregarious person, couldn't be more lovely, and said, oh no, what we're going to do is we're all going to, once a month, we're all going to go out for drinks after work, and we're all going to go and do a lunch, and it was all very much about socialising. We could also do a weekend away. And I could see that there were a couple of members of the team that actually filled them with horror, absolute horror. Because, again, well, if you're neurodivergent, or actually you don't particularly want to socialise with these people, actually that might give you more stress. We've got to realise in an empathetic way that what we do to reduce our stress might not be what other people do. And I've said this before, and Jane, I was talking, to reduce my stress, I go running. Whereas I think if I suddenly turn around to people and go, right, what we're going to do is reduce your stress, and I've signed you all up for a half marathon, that might actually bring on more stress to people. In the same way that somebody once in a team that I worked with said that we're going to be doing a camping event over the weekend as a team bonding way, so we can all to really celebrate everything we've done. That wasn't my cup of tea at all. That filled me with absolute stress at the thought of having to go camping with a group of people that I didn't really know. But the ways that have been identified are exercise, socialising, positive work communication, nutrition, reading, celebrating what we do, walking, stretching, having meetings, communicating with people, actually bringing people in, having regular meetings, music. These are some of the ways. Now, what would be really useful, and again, if you don't mind, please, what do you do to reduce your stress, both in your own time and, if you can, as Ross shared earlier, in the workplace? And then how frequently do you do this? Is this daily, or is this like Ross's Wellbeing Wednesdays? Is it twice a month, monthly, or less? And then what impact has it had? Because of time, we're only going to spend a couple of minutes of this, but this is one activity that I want you to take away and think of more and take time really thinking about this. But just for the moment, I'm just going to give you a couple of moments in case anybody wants to share anything with the group, so so we can take that away with us. So just 2 minutes, please, just reflecting on what you do to reduce your stress, how frequently you do it, and the impact that this has had on you, both personally and in your workplace. Right, so just 30 more seconds then, Jade. I don't know whether anything's appearing. I know that I am giving people an awful lot to do in a short length of time, but that's the power hours for you. We whip through.
So we've got a very busy chat going off at the moment.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
Laura says she takes lunch breaks away from clinical space.
Yeah.
Which is so often missed when you're working on the ward. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely, yeah, well done. And again, it's something that, you know, it shouldn't be seen as a luxury. It should be seen, and, you know, particularly those people that do work on wards and are just literally on it all the time. You know, it's essential just to take that time away to breathe. And the same people often end up eating at their desks. We're just going for a walk around the block or finding a quiet space to go and eat a sandwich.
Tajinder visits the gym Monday to Friday, reads books during the break or even in the evening at home. Julia, twice a month, the whole team meets and trains with protected time and biscuits. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Morgan does knitting, reading, walking. John watches a lot of football matches in the evenings and weekends. Although sometimes that can add a bit of stress as well, depending on the team playing.
I was going to say, as my sons support Chelsea at the moment, for the shouts that are coming, I think that it's probably causing them more stress at the moment. But it presents in different ways, the highs and lows.
Vasanth listens to music, goes for walks during lunch break, and at home at least 4 to 5 days a week does stretches and exercises as well.
Oh, fantastic. This is really, really, really positive. And has anybody put what impact is this having on people? You know, apart from when the football team loses, what impact is it having?
Well, I've added a comment to the chat, and if I may, I go walking. I find that a great way to actually decompress my thoughts, and particularly if I'm struggling with a task, I may also think of a new solution whilst I'm actually out there doing the walk, because I've got inspiration, I've got that time away to actually think, and that reduces stress, so that when I return to my desk, I can look at that problem with a fresh thoughts, fresh pair of eyes, feeling a lot better in myself.
That's an absolutely, you know, a wonderful example. And also it is, and those of you that heard me before, you know, there is a neurological reason for that, because when we're getting, you know, or even if we're just busy or exhausted, the emotional bit at the back of our brain literally sort of, you know, closes up because we're stressed. And then when we go for a walk, it opens, and then the chemicals that are emitted from the emotional bit of your brain to the cognitive bit of your brain, there is chemicals that are emitted, and you are literally firing on all cylinders again, which is why so often, even when it's just a fact of, oh, what's the name of that, how's this working, what are we doing, you know, and then it suddenly comes to you. It is that bit that when you go for a walk, and so often, and I turn around and I try to introduce sort of walking meetings, or say to people, no, let's get away from this. People say, oh no, I can't, I've got to get this finished. And then so often I come back and they're still, you know, the slide that I showed you, the person sort of like this, they're just sort of poring over their desk like this. No, I've got to get this finished. I've got to get this finished. Whereas I said to them, if you'd have just come for, you know, 15 minutes and had a walk, and I know it's really wonderful, and Jade, I know that you'll be sharing this, that, you know, the institute, you know, introduces, you know, started to do well-being walks and things across, that we try to do more and more, but it really does, you know, make such an impact. So I'm really pleased to hear the variety of those, and do take this away and begin to think of the most important thing. What I really loved about that was the cross section, which again comes back to that point of, we can't impose on somebody else what will help them not feel stressed, because we might make them feel more stressed by imposing that on us. I've tried to knit and I've not got on very well with it at all, whereas Morgan's obviously proficient at it. It's what, you know, what works well for us. Okay, so what does it look like in practice? We need to create a psychologically safe working environment where individuals will feel safe to actually say, do you know what, I'm struggling with this. Do you know, I need a little bit more time? Because so often when I'm supporting organisations and people saying, and we saw about the amount of people that are saying they feel stressed because of the workload, actually, you know what, and they sort of say, oh, well, no, but I've got to do this, and say, well, have you articulated that? Are you able to, you know, sit down and say, actually, this is unrealistic? Because, or, right, I understand that you need this done by the end of the week, but in that case, what am I going to prioritise that over? What am I going to do instead? So creating that psychologically safe work environment, and also an environment where people can take risks. They can say, yeah, I don't mind being in charge of that. And you know what, if it goes horribly wrong, it doesn't matter. That we can provide accessible, non-judgmental support and advice. Turning around, well, have you thought about doing it this way, but not in a patronising way? If somebody's really hot, or even if somebody actually is being quite tricksy about something, actually not cutting them down, saying, well, hold on a minute, you're actually coming across a little bit confrontational there. How about we do it from this way? And also, this is the important one, which is why it's really lovely to hear about people saying, no, actually, I go and eat my lunch away from the ward. I go for a walk. Do you role model a healthy, sustainable, realistic work-life balance? So often we go and we tell people to sort of say, oh, yes, well, you need to take your annual leave, or you need to finish on time, or no, don't pick up emails. And then they go and they don't do that themselves, and oh, make sure you don't eat at your desk. And then the person that they're looking to, whether it's a role model of a peer or whether you're in a position of leadership, you know, they're not implementing that. So often people seem to think that, oh, actually, no, to be a leader, I have to work unrealistically long hours, and I never take my annual leave, and I just grab a sandwich here and I'm dashing here. Yes, taking responsibility is exhausting, but you've also got to look after yourself, because we don't want shooting stars to be burnt out, and we don't want future leaders to look up and think, actually, no, I can't do that because I can never be a leader, because actually I've got other commitments, I've got caring commitments. We need to be, you know, really considerate and role model a healthy, sustainable, realistic work-life balance, not just for us, but for our peers and colleagues. We need to establish a positive work culture where breaks and annual leave are encouraged and discussed at one-to-ones and monitored. Where we say to people, so often sort of, you know, people turn around and say, oh no, it's all right, but I can, especially now with like Zoom meetings and things, oh, I'm on annual leave next week, but I can join in that. There might be a time where it's absolutely pivotal because it's a safeguarding meeting and you've been working on a case and it's the only time, and you think, well, you know, but equally you should say, well, no, actually, I'm going to turn my emails off. I'm going to turn my phone off. And as a leader perspective, we ought to have suitable other people. So when we put in our sign off, please contact that person. None of us should be so indispensable that other people can't be contacted, because actually you're not. Yourself and your families and your friends are really, really the most important thing. And I've made mistakes of doing that, thinking, yeah, but the thing is, I've got to be the one that goes to that meeting because I know this better than anybody else. But guess what? When I've moved on to other jobs, or when I have been, you know, had to have an operation or something and not been away, do you know what? They coped. And if they didn't, that reflects badly on me as a leader, that I haven't got these things in place. And we introduce accessible opportunities for good nutrition and exercise, so lots of water. So we turn around and we say that, yeah, well, get away from your desk and walk around, have a break, do some stretching, it's lovely to hear about stretching, meditation. I'm not talking about going out doing sprints, but just be able to, if we're looking forward a bit, just do some stretches and good nutrition. And again, I'm not saying that everybody ought to say, right, we're banning these foods, we're only having these, but make sure that if you know that your team are struggling, that actually there's different foods for people that can grab something. A lot of us that worked through the pandemic, the reason we're so stressed is because actually we weren't having time to literally get out and grab something for lunch. So are there baskets of fruit and, biscuits and sustenance around that we can grab something? So moving forward then, as we move into the final part, and this is another activity that I really just am leaving with you to go away and think about, but want to talk you through. So which 3 adjectives do you think, describe your temperament? So thinking of us as emotionally intelligent, and it's really interesting to then think, which 3 adjectives do you think others would use to describe you? And this is some honest reflection and an activity that I invite you to do, to think about this yourself, but actually then say to trusted people. So if I give you a personal example, of which I have lots of detrimental ones against how I've not played it right, that, describe your temperament. So actually, one of the ones I'd say is passionate. I get really, really passionate about something. Yet somebody else described me and they said, actually, but Claire, you can be quite intimidating. And I'm thinking, intimidating? What? But I'm delightful. I'm lovely. I'm emotionally intelligent. I'm not the intimidating one. And then I realised what I saw as passion, going in and being really, really passionate. People think, oh, good Lord. And I thought, actually, I've got to rein that in a little bit, because some people feel intimidated by me being so passionate about what I feel strongly about. And it's about that honest reflection. And also identify 3 behaviours you frequently demonstrate that do not reflect emotionally intelligent leadership, whether that's if you are formally in a position of leadership, but also with your peers. So living by the adage, do I do as I say and not as I do? So again, this comes back to communication, hours worked, annual leave. So we're saying to people that, the way in which we communicate, make sure that's really, really important. Yet we send out an email that just bang, bang, bang. And, it's just really sort of quite impersonal. Or we're the first one in and the last one out all of the time, and we don't take our annual leave. That we focus on too many things at once. That we say to people, no, we'll just finish that and finish it properly, just take time. Whereas actually we're dashing around, juggling too many things. We push too hard on the task, but we've got to get this done, and we actually forget the people. We don't do it purposely. We just get so caught up in saying, but we've got to get this piece of work finished, that I always say when I'm doing sort of larger keynotes and presentations, actually, why do we do what we do? And sometimes we get so caught up in saying, but I've got to get all of these amount of things finished in time. I've got to get the risk assessment done. I've got to get the care plan. I've got to get this done. I've got to get that done. That we actually forget about the people, and actually doing less of focusing on the task and more focusing on the people would put us in greater strength. Or that we're not giving clear direction, or we're giving inconsistent direction because everything's up here because we're working at 1,000,000 hours. And again, that's something that people have fed back to me, and it's so useful if you've got some critical friends that can feed back. They go, yeah, this is all very well, Claire, but you go, you work at such a speed You look around and nobody's quite there with you, and they're a bit lost as to, well, hold on a minute, where's she gone? What do I need to be doing? And I'm thinking, no, I'm driving everyone forward, really, really passionately driving them forward. And I've actually got a load of intimidated people that are thinking, oh gosh, well, I can't keep up with this. I don't know what I'm meant to be doing. And also the other point, because emotionally intelligent people can actually be very, 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 very good at performance management, allowing people who aren't performing to remain in the job. Emotionally intelligent people are like, oh, well, everybody's lovely. Actually, it's about doing that performance management and saying, well, actually, I have tried to support you in this and you're not doing this. Remember, we're here for the individuals that we support and you're not doing that. The best way to get rid of good members of your team is to keep bad members of your team. Just some things to take away, an activity to take away and think about. So the positive impact that emotionally intelligent leadership has on the workplace. An engaged and predominantly content workforce. So I've put predominantly content in there because there will always be some niggles, and actually that's not a bad thing. You know, we need some pushback. And I always sort of say, you know, the worst thing with giving people autonomy is they start thinking for themselves and they do start pushing back, you know, and that's the sort of, you know, that's the juxtaposition. I mean, but it's brilliant. You need some, you know, so we're predominantly content, but actually we're always, they want to be pushing forward. A constructive, vibrant work environment, not one where everybody's shoulders are down, heads are down and they're just soldiering on, but a constructive, vibrant one. An effective team creates an impetus for organisational growth, and that's what we want. Improved recruitment and retention. As I said, salaries, whilst they are really, really important, everybody needs to pay their rent. But actually, the reasons people come into jobs and stay in jobs is because of the environment that they're working in, whether they feel valued, whether they have development and learning opportunities, whether they feel communicated with and part of the bigger plan. They're key reasons that research shows us that people stay in their roles. Increased productivity. There is absolute correlation between increased productivity and emotionally intelligent teams, and greater profitability for those teams. However we define profitability, really, really key thing. So even the most harshest individuals that think, say, you know, oh, well, we can't afford to do it. Well, actually, you can't afford not to do it because the amount it costs you otherwise. So what I want you to do as a takeaway activity is carry out an honest analysis of your work environment and your role within it. Would you honestly describe it as a psychologically safe environment? Do you provide accessible, non-judgmental support and advice? Do you role model a realistic work life? These are not for now, these are to take away, like the previous activity, for you to start leaving and reflecting. Identify what you need to do to improve this and write a time-framed action plan to implement this. Doesn't need to be big, can be just be 3 points. We're going to introduce Wellbeing Wednesdays. When are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? Who's going to be involved? Doesn't need to be huge. Right, and now finally, because I did promise we'd finish at 5:02 to give questions, but what I'm going to do is come off the shared screen, if I can find the way that I can do that. Hold on, I'm giving the answer away. I'm trying to come out of stopping sharing. I've got carried away here. Trying to find out how I can come out of that. Oh, where we are. Am I out now?
You've done it, Claire. You've done it.
I suddenly had a horrible feeling that I'd exited myself rudely from the meeting. So what we're going to do very quickly before we have 5 minutes of questions and going into the chat is the answers to the questions. So I will read the first list and omitted and see who has come up. Feel free to speak. Right, so the first one, the planets, which one was omitted? The ones I told you were Venus, Earth, Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, Neptune and Uranus. So which one did I leave out, team?
Oh, they've all got it in the chat box, Claire. Mars.
Mars, well done, well done, well done. Then the next one, and I'll be completely honest with you, I had to double check because I had to check, well, do I know which all of them are anyway? So I wouldn't have been very good at this one, even if I had listened. So the Henry VIII's wives, I did Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, and Catherine Parr. Which one did I admit of the wives?
Oh yeah, they've all got it in the chat.
Catherine Howard, brilliant, well done, well done. And then the final one, do I need to go through the star sign that I missed out? People got it? I'm not going to read them all out for brevity.
Yeah, they're coming through. Everybody's saying Libra. Well
done, fantastic. It's just a little bit of good fun activity to do with your teams or your peers in a team meeting, just because, you know, so you don't make it so difficult. It's not a quiz, but it is about those listening. So, and think of other lists. I mean, those of you that are football fans, think of listing a team that your team, you know, people may get into. It just is a little bit of a fun way to do a genuine listening activity. So in the last couple of minutes, has anybody got any specific questions or anything that we, you know, any prompts that we want to take away to think about for next time?
In case anybody doesn't think of anything right at this moment in time, I have put a link in the chat box that will take you to a Survey Monkey that you can leave feedback that I will share with Claire that will help inform how we deliver the next workshop. So there's one around nurturing emotional intelligence on the 17th of May. There's a link to register for that if you've not already in the chat box too. And there's also 3 subsequent workshops. Claire, if you'd like to tell everybody what those are.
Yes, I certainly will do, she says, being put completely on the spot there. So the next one is nurturing emotionally intelligent teams. I'm trying to remember them in the order, Jade, that you gave them to me. So there's the nurturing emotionally intelligent teams, and then we've got compassionate leadership, must be in there somewhere. Then we've got the compassionate leadership, and then which are we doing is that the communication and negotiating one, or are we doing the recruitment and retention?
Recruitment and retention, then negotiation skills and communication skills in October. So lots to look forward to over the next couple of months with you, Claire.
Brilliant. No, well, you know that I really enjoy it, and thank you very much for the positive points, and that you know, and do feedback, because we want to improve. We want these to be as good hours as possible. And Laura, your point about the activities, one of the feedback that we got before, that people really enjoy the activities to consolidate points. So I'm glad you've said that. So one of the things that I've done since the last time that I did this is try to do more activities. So even though we can't give them the time that they deserve in these workshops, they just get you thinking, and they're takeaway points that you can take away with you. Okay, so Jade, I'll hand over to you. Oh, this is one for you, Jade, that Julia's put in. That do you automatically send the reminders and links to us now we're registered?
So what will happen? So thank you, Claire, for leading today's session. So Dr. Claire Mould, Director of Claire Strategic. Thank you so much, Claire. Yes, so lots of thanks for you going off in the chat, all those little beeps that you could hear a second ago. To answer Julia's question, you will receive reminders for the next 4 workshops in this 5 series workshop event that we've got with Claire. It was the second time that Claire is running this exclusively for IHSCM members, because it was so well received on our first delivery of the workshops. You will also receive an electronic certificate of attendance for today and a copy of the recording when it's ready ready. Around 1 to 2 weeks from today's date, you'll receive those via your emails that you've registered for today's session. So thank you, everybody. I'll give you 1 minute back of your day, and look forward to seeing you on the 17th of May for our Nurturing Emotional Intelligence workshops. Thank you all.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, everybody. Thank you so much, and thank you for your positive comments. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.